Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning and the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of a couple of old cookbooks, and I'm going to say cookbooks. These are the exact same cookbook, published 1 year apart, but they're the same edition of the same cookbook from Five Roses Flour. And I have lots of this style of cookbook from Canadian companies, in that they publish, if you don't know, Canada is a multilingual country. Pretty much any language on the face of the earth can be found in Canada, but we are officially a bilingual country, English and French. And as such, most Canadian companies that make cookbooks will publish both in both languages. And Five Roses was no different. All of the flour companies in this time period were the same. And so I love going through the same editions and looking at the differences between the English and the French versions. Today we're going to do something that in the English version is called sour cream pie, but in the French version is called tarte à la cannelle. Cinnamon tart is what it's called. Let's get right into it, and we'll start out with the sour cream. Now the recipe says to use a thick sour cream, and this is, I think you'll agree, a thick sour cream. So I need about a cup of sour cream. I'm going to call that a cup. In this bowl, we're going to mix together the rest of the ingredients. So we've got sugar, cinnamon, flour. The English version says a few grains of salt and a few grains of nutmeg. The French version says a pinch of salt and a pinch of nutmeg. So pinch of salt and a pinch of nutmeg, and we'll just grate that in. So between the English and French books, they're mostly always the same, like 90% the same. But often, oh boy, often the French books have different recipes. They'll add a bunch of recipes that are completely different from the English version. And those don't appear in the English version at all. And there's always a difference in what they're called between the English and the French version. And it's not, and obviously it's, one is in French and one is in English, but they're not just a direct translation of the recipe name. They're completely different. They accentuate different ingredients to different groups. So in the English side, they want you to know it's a sour cream pie, but the French side, they're pushing the fact that it's a cinnamon pie. The next very minor difference between the English and the French is the French calls for petit raisin. And in that case, I don't really know why the different terminology, why they just wouldn't say that, use the same terminology between the two. But my favorite small raisin is a currant. And you can see on the packaging what it's called en français. We're supposed to mix these together first. So let's give it a mix. Get it all together. Okay, now we're going to deal with the eggs. The yolks go in this mixture, and the whites get frothed up into a meringue. And then you can either fold the meringue into the filling or put it on top as a meringue and brown it. I am going to fold it in because I really like to have that texture of the egg white folded in. We'll separate the eggs, and the white goes in the copper bowl, and the yolk goes in with the sour cream. This is where I often read these recipes and say, why? Why did I mix those together? I know that there's this feeling that you coat the raisins and they won't sink, blah, 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 or they won't stick together, whatever. It also told me to beat the egg yolks before putting them in this mixture. I've got a really good whisk. And, doesn't take much to make sure that they're beaten in really well with the sour cream. So I don't know why the egg yolks needed to be beaten first. Maybe you don't have a good whisk at home and it just helps things along. So the yolks are in there now. They're beaten together. we put this in and mix it together. And so I'll whisk that in. And now we'll whisk up the egg whites. I find these books fascinating because they show very minute detail of cultural differences in the way that the instructions are written, in the way that some of the ingredients are called out. Most of the recipes are exactly the same, but there are a lot of recipes where one ingredient will be changed a little bit differently, or it will be treated differently. It's also interesting in the instructions. This is coming along nicely. It's also interesting in the instructions. So in the English instructions for custard pie, it gives you a lot of information, and then it says, you know, go to page 17 to figure out how to bake it. And then you go to page 17, and it actually doesn't tell you how to bake a custard pie. It talks about a bunch of other pies, but it doesn't talk about custard pies specifically. In the French version, they are much clearer on the description of how to bake this pie. So I'm going to use the French description of how to bake the pie and not the English version, although the English version does talk about how to treat your pie shell. It says to keep your pie shell cold. I made pie dough 2 weeks ago, and I made a bunch of it to make pies for something that Julie was doing. And I put one pie shell away in the freezer, wrapped it up. Although when it comes out of the freezer now, you won't see me unwrap it because I've already done that. But I wrapped it up. It's been in the freezer for about a week, already rolled out. Tells you here to keep it cool, and it allows some of the moisture to be driven off. We're just going to fold the egg whites in. Carefully fold the egg whites in. There's a point, though, where you kind of got to get rough with it. That's one of those directions that people take... they hold too tightly to their heart about being careful. There's being careful, and then there's, you know, actually getting it mixed in. Anyway, soggy custard and pumpkin pies are easily avoided if this point is observed, keeping it cool and allowing some of the moisture to dry off. Leaving it in the freezer, even wrapped, for a couple of weeks has accomplished that. It also says to flour the crust very lightly, shake out any loose flour, then pour in the custard and place at once in the oven, baking as directed. And then it doesn't tell you actually how to do the baking. Over here in the French version, it does tell you how to do the baking. Set your oven at 450 degrees for the first 10 minutes, then lower it to 325 for the rest of the baking. So, what I have here is a butter pie crust, already rolled out. It's in a metal tin. What I have found for getting a really nice, super nice crust on the bottom of a pie like this without blind baking, because I absolutely hate blind baking, is to use a metal pie tin. Get your oven hot, like it says in the French version. So we're up at 450. There's a pizza stone in the oven. And when I place this pie tin, metal tin, on that pizza stone, the bottom is going to cook really quickly, and it's not going to be soggy. Okay, so here we go with the filling. As per usual, the recipe is pretty vague on what size of pie shell to use. So this is a 9-inch deep dish. Probably would have been much better off with a 9-inch shallow dish pie plate. Into the oven we go.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Jules.
Raisin pie?
Well,
It kind of looks like custard, but yet no.
it's kind of custardy. It's in the custard pie section because it is sour cream and eggs.
Okay.
En français, tarte à la cannelle.
Oh, so there's cinnamon.
Cinnamon pie. In English, sour cream pie.
Okay. What? I'll just say it's c'est bon. It's good.
Right.
In either. I haven't tasted it, but I'm confident.
Huh. What is that texture? I was not expecting that texture.
No, what were you expecting?
A more custardy texture. That's almost a cake texture.
I was expecting a cake texture, so there you go.
Huh.
So my family loves a raisin pie. I find raisin pie, like mincemeat pie, too rich.
Yes.
This, for me, is the right amount of fruit.
Right amount of fruit and right
me.
amount of sweetness.
I really like the cinnamon.
So I'm amazed that 1.5 tablespoons of flour has turned that filling into something that is more cake-like.
I bet you could make it in a bowl a bit like a bread pudding kind of thing, and it would still be just as tasty, and you could scoop it out like a pudding versus a pie. Although the pie does make it easier to, and then you get the crust, which I just want to pick up and eat. But
I'm going pie 100%.
This would be a good breakfast pie.
That's a great pie. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Merci.
Wait, c'est bon. Amazing pie. I'll put the recipe en français in the at the end of the video, like I always do. I will translate for you the French instructions, which are much better than the English instructions. The English instructions, quite frankly, suck. The French instructions are straightforward and tell you exactly what to do. And I had thought initially that a 9-inch deep dish pie dish wasn't going to be good enough, but it puffed up and filled it. Amazing. Amazing.
I'm now I'll have to do a deep dive into the 2 sets of instructions because I'm curious.
Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.